Hello, microphone working, potato camera working. So, greetings Internet, it is one more voice again, and I'm here to talk about something that I said I was going to talk about in an earlier video, and now I'm finally getting around to talk about, because I try to at least keep some of the words that I speak. Probably a good idea in the long run, just tossing that one out there. So, what am I talking about today? It's going to be the M16 AR15 style rifle. Now notice I did not say assault rifle or assault weapon or any sort of nonsense like that. I'm going to be talking about the body of rifle and things of that nature. So, two things I want to get out of the way right off the bat. One, in case you've missed a lot of my other videos, I'm actually a supporter of firearm rights. I very much think that's something very integral to bodily defense and just, in general, rights. So long as you are not harming another person, you should have the right to do it. It's generally speaking a good way to go about things, I found. So the second thing I want to get out of the way is that I very much dislike the AR-15. I really don't like it. As a rifle, it's just not my favorite. If it had to rank anywhere, it would probably rank near the bottom of my favorites and near the top of things that I really don't like. Now, I'll go ahead and say why. First off, there are a handful of firearms that I actually do very much appreciate in terms of aesthetics and mechanics. I think that the science of ballistics and engineering are just really fascinating, especially when it comes to certain machines. But let's get to the point as to why I don't like the M16 AR-15 style body. And again, yeah, I have to keep sectioning those two together because the AR-15 was the original and eventually got adopted into the United States military M16, which got deployed in Vietnam and a couple of other places. So let's start off with the AR-15. Now, if you don't know, it's that tactical-looking rifle that's certain people within the firearms community absolutely love. And then you have, it's also, of course, it is the exact same rifle that all of the anti-firearm people just absolutely hate. It's a very divisive rifle, and that kind of feeds into the idea as to why I don't like it. It's literally just a physical piece of controversy. So let me go ahead and say first off why I don't like it by itself. The AR-15, for the most part, most of them fires a very small caliber. It seems like a very strange thing to start with, but it fires a very small you know what? I'm not even going to start here. I'm going to circle back to that. Let me go ahead and start as to why it ever got adopted into the United States military to begin with. The AR-15 was a piece of political lobbying gone horribly wrong that got a lot of United States soldiers killed. That's where I'm going to start. The AR-15 rifle is developed by Armalite Industries and pushed by Eugene Stoner, was a subpar rifle that would break and jam at the slightest issue, environmentally speaking. It would malfunction all the time. Fired a small round that is often not enough to take down medium game in a hunting scenario, let alone a human being. And in general, it was just a really, really poor tool. Especially when you take into consideration that when soldiers get deployed, oftentimes they're deployed outside of the wire and in an environment that is not very conducive to frail machinery. If you ever notice, everything produced in the military for field deployment tends to be very boxy, it tends to be protected, and it tends to be very durable. Something you can throw down a flight of stairs or submerge in sand or mud, and it will still function. The reason this is because you can't always look after your equipment in the field. What happens is that it breaks down, things get dropped, debris gets thrown all over you if a shell lands nearby. The point is that things happen in the field and you need your equipment to be very durable. The AR-15 is not very durable. It has a very small, cramped firing mechanism. It jams. Now, the modern incarnations of the AR-15 rifle have fixed most of these problems, but that's only because engineers have been tinkering with it for the last 40 years to actually come up with a working design. So that's why I don't like the rifle right off the bat. When it was deployed in Vietnam, a lot of the soldiers really liked it at first because it was very lightweight and the ammunition was very lightweight in comparison to older military rifles. The older military rifles like the M1 family, the M14, the M1 Garand, even the M1 carbine is actually fairly hefty when you compare it to an AR-15 rifle, as the M1 branch is mostly made out of wood and steel, whereas the AR branch was made primarily out of plastic and a very small amount of steel comparatively. Also, the ammunition was a lot more lightweight because it fires .223 or .556 caliber, which is effectively in terms of mass, it's ever so slightly larger than a .22, which is a caliber most likely used for either target practice or hunting squirrels. So while this was great for laying down suppressive fire, actually hitting a human being with it, you're far more likely to wound rather than kill. Which, granted, if you're looking at a rifle as a target practice, by all means, the AR-15 is a fantastic rifle for target practice because it's actually very good at managing recoil, partially due to its small round and also because it has most of them are built in with a very sophisticated recoil compensation system. Problem is that this recoil compensation system makes it a little bit more frail because certain areas in traditional rifles were solid, like stock. They were solid wood and metal, which meant that it was very durable and could absorb a lot of shock, a lot of physical damage. The AR-15 was designed with a hollow stock that housed a recoil compensation system, and this was great until it was dropped, and then it would break, or you needed to hit something with it, like, a door or a log or something. The point is that it's a frail tool. So, my points that I'm going to cover was that this frail tool that got put into the hands of American soldiers in the Vietnam War, the issue is that it got a lot of them killed because their firearm, actually, in a military deployment, I will use the term weapon, their weapon would jam and malfunction all the time because a jungle environment is not a good place for a frail piece of machinery. The AR-15 was designed by Eugene Stoner to be used to guard indoor places like an Air Force base or something of that nature. It was basically an MP weapon designed for almost sterile environments. It was not made for regular deployment. Most of the generals, in fact, in one of the earliest test firings of the weapon, the AR-15, they hated the rifle because it's small caliber. They knew it wasn't going to be large enough to be effective all the time. The fact that it wasn't a long rifle decreased its range, and then you had the issue that, of course, it actually, on one of its first test firings, the AR-15 rifle jammed, and when fired again, the bullet, nearly took off the general's hand because it exploded out of the side of the barrel about 5 inches away from the general's hand when they were test firing. Basically, it was a failure of a weapon that only got purchased by the United States military because Eugene Stoner effectively called in a political favor and gave someone a very hefty bribe. So the fact that it's been kind of adopted as the symbol of Second Amendment rights is something I find personally just incorrect on a lot of different levels. It should be a symbol of political lobbying, and it should be a symbol of corporate cronyism in our government. It's also just not a good rifle. Alright, so more points as to why the AR-15 sucks. Because at this point in time, I'm going to be very open with my distaste. So the second, another reason I really don't like the AR-15 rifle is because of the way it is often seen and the way it is portrayed. It's always portrayed as the military-style rifle. First off, nothing wrong with the military. In fact, the military is Military is a long, proud tradition that every country worth its salt has, because it is the defense of borders and sovereignty. That is what a military is for. It is to defend your nation's right to exist, and the people's within it right to exist. That is what a military is. So they should be supported, they should be honored, of course. But, and I'm not going to take issue with the military, I'm going to take issue with firearms manufacturers selling it to civilians as a military-style rifle in an attempt to boost the sales. There's a little thing called stolen valor, and that's when somebody who was not a part of the military acts or pretends or presents themselves as if they are a part of the military. Now, I have not served, I'm not a part of the military, but at the same time, I respect the organization, and I think that people posing as military members, either currently serving or veterans, in order to gain anything from respect from other people to discounts, are just disrespecting it to a tremendous degree. And I think on some level, purchasing something very specifically because it is a military-style rifle and you want to present yourself in this way, that is a stone's throw away from stolen valor. And that's something that I find incredibly distasteful. So, it's another issue I have, because the AR-15 rifle is often, it's just portrayed as, ooh, you pick this thing up and you're an action hero. Look at that. Yeah, you're an action hero because you own this piece of hardware that other people that actually go into combat zones use, so therefore you're just as good as them, right? No, it's insulting, it's dumb, and it gives people a false sense of confidence to the point of being obnoxious. And I guess that's an primary issue I have with it. Let's see, another issue I have with it. People take these things hunting, and they take it hunting medium to large game. Alright. Now, I may do a video on hunting later, but let me just go ahead and say for now that if you are a hunter, a part of your job as a good hunter is to ensure that the game you are taking down is both legally taken and humanely taken, meaning that that animal should be having a pretty good life up until the point that the lights go out. They should not see you coming, and they should not suffer after they have been shot. The small caliber of the 223 ensures, for the most part, that if you are firing on anything larger than, say, a 100-pound animal, that animal is going to live well after the first shot. How do I know this? Is because I've seen it happen when people go hunting with an AR-15. If their shot placement is not perfectly on point, which I know marksmanship is very important for hunting, but if your shot placement is not perfectly on point, that animal is going to suffer because the small caliber of the round means that there's not going to be a tremendous amount of organ disruption or shock. So that's another reason I intensely dislike it, because I know that there's a lot of living creatures that suffer unnecessarily because people think that taking this killing tool guarantees that they're going to have a lot of stopping power, which is completely false considering the fact that the rifle is the caliber is very small. Listen, people, if you want to take something hunting and you want to increase your lethality, or you want to ensure that the animal does not suffer, take an accurate rifle with a large caliber. Also, get a license, make sure you have all the proper permits, make sure everyone traveling with you has a proper permit, and for the love of God, do not hunt drunk. It's a bad idea. Tell you what, you can drink all you want after everything has been taken care of, everything's been cleaned, everything is... Hell, you can drink while cooking. Just don't drink while you are carrying a loaded firearm. That's a recipe for disaster. Let's see, what other reasons do I not like the AR-15? Right, the tactical culture that surrounds the AR-15. Now, people have called me a FUD for saying this. Apparently that's a term. Gun FUD. Again, I got a lot of interests. Firearms are a very small one, but I've never liked rampant consumerism to the point where it defines you as a person. And the AR-15 seems to attract a certain kind of person to it, where they have to buy every possible attachment that they can to put on the side of their rifle. And it gets really, really obnoxious. Oh, dear Lord, my stomach. I'm very hungry. I think I might run down to the store and get myself like a $4 steak. You can get like an entire pound of steak for like $4, cook it up, and it's perfect. So anyways, I'm a steak and potatoes kind of person. So, especially potatoes. Potatoes, I don't know why, they're just... So, moving on though. So this tactical culture, tactical, mall ninjas, whatever you want to call them. Basically, they get an AR-15 style rifle, and they pick it up, and they're like, "Oh man, I just spent $1,500 to $3,000 on this flimsy, low caliber piece of crap. You know what I should do? I should buy all of the overtly expensive attachments to it that probably weigh just as much as the entire rifle when their mass is combined, and just stick them all over it and still have terrible grouping when I go to the range." Because, listen, sticking all sorts of crap on top of your firearm does not make you any more tactical, it doesn't make you any more accurate, it doesn't make you any better. If anything, it just shows that you have a tremendous amount of disposable income and not a tremendous amount of wisdom. Just no. It's horrible. I was about to say. That's another thing. Oh yeah, that's right. The cost. Now, I have seen firearms that I would consider spending $2,000 on. I have. I didn't because, food and rent are things that I need to pay for. Pretty soon, food and mortgage moving up in the world. So because food and rent are things that people need, I have not spent a tremendous amount of my hard-earned cash on things that I don't really need. But the AR-15, as I've said, is a flimsy, low-caliber, poorly designed, overhyped chunk of polymer plastics and cheap metal. And, well, I don't see why anybody would spend upwards $1,500 on it. I've seen AR-15s that go for over $4,000. There's no reason that anyone should spend that much. The thing is barely worth like half of the lowest price, and it's just awful. So I think I've ragged on it enough. I think I've insulted the AR-15 and some of the people who like them for about 18 minutes? Nah, I can do it a little bit more. So people who like the AR-15, aside from being obsessed with basically imitating the military, or people obsessed with the tactical nature of the firearm, or people thinking that it will somehow make them cooler by owning it, there are better firearms to own. There are cheaper firearms to own. There are better designed firearms that are... Basically, it's a horrible rifle. It's overhyped all to hell. It's been marketed in the worst possible way. And in general, it is incredibly overpriced. These are reasons that I intensely dislike the AR-15. Now, I hate to jump onto this side of the fence, but for anybody looking to purchase a legal firearm within the United States and they want a semi-automatic rifle, and they want it for target practice, hunting, general purpose, a recreational tool. If they want it for like a recreational tool, you know what you should look at? And I know people are gonna hate this, but look at the AK family or Kalashnikov. It's generally speaking, it is very inexpensive as far as rifles go, It fires the 7.62 by 39 round, which is actually a fairly large round. You can hunt with that thing. You can hunt medium game with that thing. It's very accurate. It's a lot more accurate than people would want you to think. It's also incredibly sturdy. Oh, dear Lord. There are Kalashnikovs that have been floating around just in war zones for decades, and, most of the pieces have been replaced with rubber bands and plywood, and those things function perfectly. Don't ask me how. Mikhail Kalashnikov did a tremendous job when designing that thing. It's like he designed it very specifically for the worst possible conditions and the cheapest possible material, and it would still work. I have seen videos, and I recommend that you look this up online because they're hilarious, of people jamming the firing mechanism of an AK-47 Kalashnikov-style rifle with pretty much anything they can think of. They jam it with peanut butter, they jam it with mud, they put rocks in there, they throw sand in there, and the thing still fires. I was just about to say, you take an AR-15 into kind of a dusty room and the thing will jam. You take a Kalashnikov and you jam a hamburger in there and it'll still fire. Actually, one of the few videos that I saw where the Kalashnikov could not cycle a bolt after something had jammed into it, weirdly enough, was American fruitcake. Yes, those inedible bricks that can be used as submarine ballast or makeshift building materials in a pinch. I actually kind of like fruitcake. I actually think it goes really well with Christmas ham. But they're still inedible bricks because that is the meme. It's the meme of the fruitcake before memes were a thing. But yeah, basically, fruitcake. That apparently jams an AK's firing action. I don't know why, but apparently American fruitcake is that's just the silver bullet. So that was my video as to just why I don't like the AR-15 M16. Now, everybody feel free to fact check me because I love just throwing a bunch of random stuff at the wall that I'm pretty sure is right, but I get corrected every now and again, and I admit when I'm wrong and I issue retractions, so. I've been Mr. One More Voice, and y'all have a nice day. Dinner time.